The first time the bishop came to our house, I thought it was about one refusal. By the fifth time, I understood it was not about any single no. It was about establishing, once and for all, that no was not actually a word available to me in my marriage. It was about teaching me, and teaching the community watching, what happened to a wife who started believing she had that kind of choice. My name is Hannah. I grew up Old Order Amish in Holmes County, Ohio. I married at 19 and left at 27. On this channel, I tell the stories I was never supposed to repeat, and today I want to walk you through exactly what escalation looks like when a woman in a conservative Amish community says no to her husband and then says it again. I have talked before about the coldness, about the way my husband withdrew when I said no. I have talked about the bishop's first visit to our kitchen table, the one where he told me that a wife who refuses her husband opens a door for the devil. What I have not fully explained is what happened after that first conversation, because what happened was a pattern so systematic, so carefully orchestrated, that I did not fully understand until much later that it was not my husband acting alone. It was my husband, my mother-in-law, the community, and the bishop, all working together in a choreography they had never discussed, but all seemed to understand perfectly. The first time I said no, Jonas handled it privately. He withdrew. He was cold. The house went quiet around me. I thought that was the end of it. I did not know yet that I had triggered a sequence that would unfold over the following months, each step building on the last one, each visit from the bishop designed to be a little more authoritative than the one before it, each conversation with another woman from the community designed to make it clear that I was not just refusing my husband, I was refusing God. I was refusing my community. I was becoming the kind of woman people whispered about. By the second no, which came 3 weeks later, Jonas had already brought the bishop to our house once, so when I said no the second time, the response was different. It was not just his coldness. It was the appearance, very quickly, of my mother-in-law at our house, ostensibly to help with some canning, but really to observe, to report back, to make sure I understood that this refusal had become a community matter, not just a marriage matter. I remember her moving through my kitchen with a particular kind of efficiency that suggested she was there with a purpose beyond the canning. She asked me questions, pointedly, about how I was feeling, whether I was sleeping well, whether I was managing all my responsibilities. Each question was phrased as concern, but underneath was an assessment. She was evaluating me the way a judge evaluates evidence. By the time she left, I understood that she knew exactly why she had come, and so did I. By the third no, which came about 6 weeks after the second one, the bishop came again. This time, he was not alone. He brought another elder with him, a man I did not know well, someone from a neighboring district. The message was clear. This was no longer a single household matter. This was becoming something the larger community structure felt needed to address. I remember that second bishop visit more clearly than the first one, though I wish I did not. The tone was different. The first time, there had been a veneer of gentleness. This time, there was steel underneath. He told me, very directly, that there were people in the community who were concerned. He said that my refusal was not just affecting my marriage, it was affecting the entire household standing in the community. He said that other wives were noticing, and he was worried that my behavior might encourage them to question their own submission. I do not think I had fully grasped, until that moment, that my marriage was not a private thing. My refusal was not a private thing. I was not just a wife managing a conflict with a husband. I was a woman whose body, whose choices, whose voice belonged, in some sense, to the entire community, because the entire community had an investment in the kind of wife I was, the kind of example I set, the kind of precedent I established. The fourth no came very carefully. By that point, I had learned something important. I had learned that each no I spoke was not simply a decision about that particular night. It was a decision that would ripple outward, that would bring consequences I could not control, that would trigger a response from an entire system designed to make sure that women like me understood, conclusively, that no was not actually something I was permitted to say. So the fourth no was quieter. I did not say it out loud. I simply lay there, exhausted, and I did not participate. I did not resist violently. I simply became, temporarily, absent from my own body. It was the only form of no I had figured out that felt less likely to bring the bishop back to my house. But the fifth no, the one that came about 4 months after the first one, was different. By that point, I was so tired, so worn down by the escalating visits, the conversations with other women, the constant message that I was the problem, that I was the one making this harder than it needed to be, that I spoke it out loud again. I said no, clearly, directly, the way I had said it that first time. That is when the bishop came for the 5th time, and he did not come alone. He brought my husband's father. He brought another elder. He brought, in a very real sense, the weight of the entire community infrastructure designed to make sure that a wife understood, absolutely, that her no was not acceptable. I remember sitting at our kitchen table while the men explained to me, very carefully, what happened to women who became rebellious. They did not use that word exactly. They talked about the importance of the Ordnung, about how if women started saying no to their husbands, it would undermine the entire foundation of community life. They talked about marriages that had broken up because wives became selfish about their own bodies. They talked about daughters who had gotten ideas from mothers who did not submit properly. They made it very clear, without ever saying it directly, that if I continued down this path, there would be consequences, not just for me, but for my children, my standing in the community, potentially even my family relationships outside my marriage. And then the bishop said something I will never forget. He said that he was going to stop coming to my house because he had decided that my problem was not something that could be solved by his intervention. My problem, he said, was spiritual rebellion, and spiritual rebellion required a different kind of response. He said that from that point forward, I should focus on prayer, on fasting, on seeking God's forgiveness for the hardness in my heart that was making me refuse my husband. He said that if things did not improve, he would have no choice but to recommend that the community begin a process of discipline. He did not say the word meidung, which is the Amish term for shunning. He did not need to. I understood exactly what he meant. After they left, I stood in my kitchen and something shifted in me, though I could not name it at the time. I understood, finally, that this was not actually about my marriage. This was about control. This was about a system that had decided, long before I was even born, that women's bodies belonged to their husbands, and that any woman who questioned that, belonged, needed to be brought back into line, not through one conversation or one visit, but through an escalating series of interventions, each one designed to make the cost of saying no higher and higher, until she finally understood that the only acceptable choice was yes. What I did not understand until years later was that this process had a name. There is academic research on this. It is called coercive control, and it is characterized by exactly this kind of pattern. Not a single violent act, but an escalating series of interventions designed to make a person's resistance increasingly costly. And the genius of it, the terrible efficiency of it, is that it happens inside a system, through a system, so that no single person can be blamed. The bishop is not forcing you. Your husband is not forcing you. Your mother-in-law is simply concerned. The community is simply trying to help. And yet the pressure, applied from every direction simultaneously, becomes impossible to resist. I want to talk about what I understand now that I did not understand then. I understand that the first visit from the bishop was not a response to my refusal. It was the beginning of a predetermined process. I understand that each subsequent visit was calibrated, that my mother-in-law's appearance was not coincidental, that the appearance of more elders was part of an escalation that had been planned, even if nobody sat down and explicitly planned it. I understand that this kind of pressure works precisely because it is distributed. No one person is responsible. Everyone is just doing what they believe they are supposed to do. And the person being pressured has no way to name what is happening, no way to point to a single act of violence or cruelty, because the violence is in the system, not in any individual action. After the 5th bishop visit, I made a choice. I went back to saying yes. I made myself available in the way my husband expected. I stopped the refusals, at least in any explicit way. And the visits from the bishop stopped. The pressure eased. My mother-in-law stopped coming by as frequently. The community stopped watching quite so carefully. And I learned, very thoroughly, that the only way to make the system stop pressing was to stop resisting. But something inside me had broken in a way that I could not quite repair while I was still inside that marriage. I had understood, completely and finally, that my no did not matter, that my body did not belong to me, that I was not a person making choices in my own marriage. I was a woman living inside a system that had decided, in advance, what I was supposed to do, and the only reason the system bothered to keep visiting, keep speaking, keep applying pressure, was because I had briefly believed that I had another option. Years later, when I finally did leave, it was partly because I understood that staying meant accepting, permanently, that I did not have the right to say no to my own body. And I understood that if I accepted that, I would disappear so completely that even I would not be able to find myself anymore. If you have ever experienced an escalating series of interventions because you said no once, if you have ever watched the pressure build as each person in your community decided that they had a role to play in making you compliant, if you have ever understood that a single refusal was not just about that moment, but about establishing, for all time, what kind of person you were supposed to be, I see you. You were not being helped. You were being systematized. The visits were not about your marriage. They were about control. And control that is distributed across a whole system is much harder to name, much harder to fight, but no less real than control that comes from a single person. This is my story. If it stayed with you, tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to keep hearing the truth from behind the prayer cap.